Contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here, brought to you by your favorite radio station, Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome to Straight Talk. That's the place where, people like to think.
Indeed.
Or for the people who like to think. How are you today, Mr. Harris?
I'm actually much better today than I was yesterday at this exact...
Because you were missing me.
At this exact moment, yes. Every day for 4 months, I've had my voice followed by your voice, at least when we open. And yesterday when I opened, it just felt like something was missing. Part of me was not here.
You're so sweet.
But we did have a good show yesterday. Again, we... Of course, Murphy's Law would have two great guests in studios, and streaming video was down, but thankfully...
So I go missing and everything goes wrong.
I tell you what, I was blaming it all on you. I was telling folks you had planned it. This is how you designed it.
Terrorist.
No video,
sabotage,
nothing.
I say.
I was lucky to have my microphone working when I walked in the studios yesterday.
Yeah.
But we apologize to the listening audience. There was a bit of a technical snafu yesterday, but thankfully, we have corrected that wrong, and once again, you can receive your favorite evening talk show, both on your radio dial at 103.1 FM, but also streaming live over YouTube and Facebook with the key search word Straight Talk Radio Show. You can also find us streaming live on the ACT Cruise Tourism page, also on Facebook. The phone lines are open for this Friday at 745-2626 is the number in studios if you want to add your voice to our Friday good vibe, and of course, perhaps even ask a question, maybe start us off on a topic of your liking. Entirely up to you. Likewise, reminding you that you can also reach out to us on our WhatsApp line by dialing 928-2562, and from there, either sharing a WhatsApp audio note or a WhatsApp traditional text message. And likewise, rounding it off, if email is your thing, you can email us at host@straighttalk.ky. Trust you had a good day today. You're looking very orange. That would certainly match what it felt like outside today, if not looked like.
DJT, buddy. DJT. It's the orange.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And, I saw...
That's right.
I saw someone say...
Orange you glad he's president.
Orange you glad, yeah. I heard someone say that they did the research on it, and that CNN deliberately ups the orange when they're showing Donald Trump. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that, but he started to, when he coined the phrase fake news, he was referring to one media company in particular when he first got elected.
There was a ringleader, and CNN was it.
CNN was it. He was he liked Fox. Fox was considered to him hard news until, of course, he learned a thing or two from one administration to the next. Now he realized that, boy, if I want the truth to be told, let me start my own site, and thus Truth Social was born.
He learned it as fake and faker.
Yes.
But funny, right? You got so many people that say, "Oh, I don't like that guy, Donald Trump," but everybody says fake news.
They do. He coined many a phrase.
Yeah, there was a guy somewhere in Cayman that used to say, "You can't hate the neighbor want to ride his bicycle." So all I'm just simply saying is, you know who that was, right? That was Mr. Bush, right? Mark.
Yes.
You can't hate the neighbor riding bicycle. Boy, Maggie would come up with some lines, boy.
Donald Trump certainly has coined a number of key catchphrases, those in his 2 terms as American president. The one that springs to the top of my mind always is bigly. I've got some big news,
Yeah.
And then, of course, when he reports on, how shall we say, special operations, He died like a dog.
We killed him. We killed him. Shot him dead like a dog.
He was whimpering, crying.
Crying, wailing, and the gnashing of teeth. Yeah.
But what about this new quote-unquote prison of Donald Trump, Alligator Alcatraz?
Why, rumor has it.
I tell you what, telling those Mexicans and otherwise persons he would deport, go ahead, jump that wall. I dare you.
You need to describe for those persons who may not be as informed exactly what Alligator Alcatraz is.
Well, I've only obviously started hearing about it in the news, and you know what? Let me try to pull up.
I'm not sure how it sneaked into the good news section, mind you. But anyway, I like it.
Yes.
But it probably is good news, isn't it?
Apparently, an abandoned airport is being turned into what is now being coined the phrase Alligator Alcatraz.
Right. And now tell us why it's called Alligator Alcatraz.
The facility, which is in the middle of the Miami swamp, was proposed by state lawmakers to support U.S. President Donald Trump's deportation agenda. You don't need to invest that much in the perimeter. If people get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. The new detention center is built on the site of the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport, about 43 miles from central Miami, in the middle, literally the middle of the Everglades. And again, it's intended to house persons that perhaps might be on his deportee list. And frankly, anybody who he considers a dissident, annoying, or a threat to the American way of life. And again, you think about it, really, you don't have to invest a heck of a lot in security. You don't have to worry about cameras, because at the end of the day, where are you going to go?
If you make it out of there, buddy, you deserve to be free.
If you make it out of this prison, believe me, you deserve to be set free.
So, not that I've read this myself, ladies and gentlemen, but from the little bit that I've gleaned from my colleague, my understanding is now, first of all, Alcatraz was the prison
just off the coast of California in San
Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Which was, again, surrounded by the ocean.
Surrounded by the ocean, and arguably had the same perimeter security, albeit in the form of fish, and particularly great whites, because great whites, tend to...
I don't know where they hang out, but...
Well, they tend to populate San Francisco Harbor or the coastline of Northern California, largely because of the lion seal population. And, just so happens that in the middle of lion seals, there's a whole bunch of surfers, conducting their way of life, and sometimes...
And so this one...
The occasional surfer gets munched.
This one is in the middle of the Everglades, you're saying,
This one
right?
is in the middle of the Everglades.
So if they
You've got
climb...
alligators, pythons, mosquitoes, and any number of creepy crawly to worry about.
That's what I was
It's a
gonna say.
swamp.
Alligators, snakes, and mosquitoes. Just the mosquitoes alone will...
I'll tell you that. Anybody who grew up in Cayman understand how serious a mosquito can get when he's mad at you.
Man,
So,
listen.
you know what I mean?
Sometimes I'm...
You can keep the rest. The mosquitoes enough to turn me off. I'll go straight. I'll be right on the straight and narrow, President Trump. If I'm not legal, I won't be in your country.
These bloodsuckers. Hey, yeah, these mosquitoes serious?
Yeah, man, they know no joke.
Let me tell you something, man. You be somewhere between them sucking your blood and you beating yourself to death. That about does it.
Quite right. You know it.
Hey, listen, a couple of times, not all the time, but a couple of times, I would probably say at least 2 occasions now, there's been some water settlement up in East End. Oh, let me tell you.
Yes.
Mosquitoes are horrendous, man.
Again, you up in the bush, so you know.
Oh, my God.
You ain't asking nobody. You telling them. I believe you.
Hey, Austin, listen to me. Listen, I've never seen mosquitoes like this in my life. I was like, whoa. Hey, there's no, like back in the day, nothing like that. And there's something different about mosquitoes now. Because I don't know, maybe it could be I getting soft, but I don't remember mosquitoes causing me to bump up that way they do now.
Listen, we had genetically...
The sun is different.
Remember, we had the genetically modified mosquito come on the scene.
The GMM.
You have to assume that some of those genes got passed on to the natural environment. Now you got mutant mosquitoes.
I think that gene thing that they tried with the mosquitoes, I think that's a failure. And of course, as usual, they came here to the Caribbean and tried it on the locals. The UK said, hey, I got a perfect place we can experiment.
It'd be funny if it wasn't true. And you think about the history of quote unquote human testing going back to our early years. And there's a lot of history on it, given the Indians, mumps and measles.
Given the blacks syphilis in the U.S.
Exactly. I mean, it's not exactly an original idea, and it's happened before. And I figure one's got to say, well, it worked before. I'm surprised you didn't mention COVID, to tell you the truth, with the whole, the vaccine there.
You know how I don't trust all of these agenda-driven groups. And, anyway, don't get me on that one.
Don't get you on that one.
Don't get me on.
Well, it is 43 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock, and we do have a bunch of good news in which to talk about, but first of which we want to talk a little bit about
I can't wait.
I know. Today was another warm one in paradise. It was hot as the surface of the sun, though the overcast skies, I thought that was just teasing, because I was expecting the afternoon thunder showers that were promised in yesterday's forecast. And, of course, again, the dark clouds were on the horizon looming, saying, wow, 2 days in a row, the weather forecast is going to hold to be accurate. But it was just a tease. I didn't feel any raindrop anywhere. Did you feel rain wherever you were?
All I can say, Austin, is that the sun has been so terribly hot on some of these days that all I can do is, we can't pray for the sun to not come up. That's not a great idea.
Yeah.
So all you can do is pray for a cloud. So if the cloud is up there and doing a little bit of shading, I'm happy.
Well, apparently a tropical wave that started in the Bay of Honduras apparently kind of blew breezed by our area this afternoon. But it's either gone or on its way out the door. Doppler radar images show some isolated showers in and around the Cayman area moving towards the northwest. But again, nothing necessarily settling over us. Tonight, we can expect partly clear skies with a 30% chance of early morning showers tomorrow. Temperatures will fall to the low 80s tonight. Winds will be east to southeast at 5 knots or less, and seas will be smooth with wave heights of less than 2 feet. Again, tomorrow, partly cloudy skies to start your weekend, 30% chance of showers, and still the chance of early morning showers tomorrow. Temperatures will rise to the low 90s, but with the heat index, it'll feel closer to 103. Winds will be out of the east to southeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. The outlook calls for light winds and isolated showers to continue until Saturday evening. As of Sunday, another tropical wave located in the eastern Caribbean will drift across our area, bringing a further increased chance of showers. Beyond this, a Saharan dust plume, we like that, is expected to spread across the western Caribbean as of late Sunday evening, bringing with it generally hazy and unsettled conditions. And whilst we're on the weather, just taking a look at the National Hurricane Center's webpage, we have Tropical Depression 3 that seems to be sort of sitting over the east coast of the United States. Obviously, this depression poses no threats to the Cayman Islands, but as of what time is it? I guess the 4 o'clock advisory, they had maximum sustained winds near 35 miles per hour, maximum central pressure 1,012 millibars, and moving towards the north at 2 knots. For those of you out there who are tracking these hurricanes, really, don't waste your ink on this one, but it is located at 30.8 degrees north, 79 degrees west, and it doesn't tell me the maximum distance from land, but it is sitting and hovering over the east coast of the United States. So that's your weather forecast for today, tomorrow, and into the weekend. 46 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. A bunch of good news in sports, Ellio. First of all, we start with tennis. Apparently, Cayman Tennis served up a historic Island Games performance. At the Orkney, that's what they call it, Orkney, Orkney 2025 Island Games, the Cayman tennis team clinched the most medals in the sport that the country has ever achieved at this event. A remarkable 8 medals were earned in the tennis portion of the competition, referred to as Satellite Games, which were held in the Isle of Man from the 21st to the 27th of June. Abby Anderson and Lauren Fullerton demonstrated their strength in the women's team event, earning a bronze medal. Anderson also secured a silver in the women's singles, while Fullerton added another individual medal with a bronze in the same category. Walking away with a silver medal in the men's singles was Franco Esterhausen. In the women's doubles, the pairing of Manon Hillebrand and Diane Habayo clinched silver, while Anderson and Fullerton earned the bronze. In the men's doubles, we saw Esterhausen and Ricardo Solon secure a silver medal, and rounding out the medal tally, Anderson and Solon won bronze in the mixed doubles events. Comparing this year's performance to previous Island Games, this year was by far the strongest performance Cayman has ever had in history. So bravo to Cayman tennis, again on the sporting scene. It's not just swimming that apparently we're great at, but we're also pretty good on the tennis court as well.
We're great at a lot of things if we're given an opportunity. I'm surprised that journalist didn't take the normal route and start that off with something like Cayman raises a racket at Orkney Games, you know?
That would have been a great headline, though.
Yeah, that's normally how they do it, right?
Cayman raises a racket at the Island Games.
Or didn't you say Orkney? What is it?
Well, it was the Orkney 2025 Island Games, but it was, the Island Games is the event that they were at.
Yeah.
I don't know where Orkney is, but I know where the Isle of Man is, obviously. So, and that's where these tennis matches took place. So bravo to Cayman tennis, and certainly
you know where it is as long as you don't have to swim there, Harris.
As long as I don't have to swim there, indeed. But I'd rather swim than walk because it can be hot outside. You know what I mean? I'd rather take a
chance with the Sharks.
Yeah, why not? You know, they don't need me. Continuing sports, we got youth basketball going on at the Cayman Bay Arts and Recreation Center, known as the Arc Center. The inaugural Hoop Fest event is taking place at the Arc Center from the 3rd of July into the 5th. Obviously kicked off yesterday, and it rounds up again on Saturday. The event will feature the Cayman Islands National Under-17 boys team called the Cayman Under-17 Storm and the Cayman Bulldogs going head-to-head with international squads Campion College from Jamaica and the Texas Tigers. Hoop Fest is specifically designed to provide the nation's rising stars with invaluable international exposure while allowing them to hone their skills against high-caliber competition on the home court. Now, tickets for the event are very, I think, affordably priced. $10 for adults, $5 for children, $5 for children under 10. And I guess anyone over 10 is treated as an adult. Boy, but you starved out for that $10, boy. Anyway, for tickets and additional information, you can visit caymanbasketball.com or follow 345 Basketball on Instagram. As far as games jumping off, it won't be kicking off. Games jump off tonight at 6 p.m. at the Arc Center with Campion College versus Texas. And at 8 p.m., Cayman's Under-17 Storm takes on the Bulldogs. On Saturday at 5 p.m., the Bulldogs face off against Texas, whilst the Cayman Under-17 Storm will face off against Campion College at 7 p.m. So if you like the game of basketball and you certainly want to support Cayman's Under-17 national team, the Cayman Bay Arc Center is where you want to be at the weekend up until at least Saturday. So there you go. Are you a basketball fan?
So what do you say? Kids are 10 and below.
Yeah, kids are 10 and below, but the thing that gets me is, okay, adults are for $10, so that must mean if you're 11, as far as the Arc Center is concerned, you're an adult.
So all I'm saying is, I hope they're not serving alcohol.
I hope not.
We might have some 11-year-olds spiking.
I tell you what, there'll be a lot of fun in the fans, in the stands.
I mean, you have a ready to be down there at 12. Here, where's my beer? Come on, I'm paying an adult ticket here.
Beer and hot dogs watching the basketball game.
Oh, my God.
Hot dogs, I think, is a cuisine best suited for baseball games.
I
think in basketball game, just beer and popcorn, I suppose. But there you go. So that's the good news category from the sports scene. Again, congratulating all of those Caymanian athletes, either the under-17 boys that make up the national basketball team, as well as the Cayman Bulldogs, or those fantastic and very talented young people in Cayman tennis. bravo to each and every one of you for representing your country and ensuring the Cayman flag is flying high, both here at home as well as abroad. And really, truly excellent performances. You have to take your hats off to athletes because there's a lot of preparation involved, and it's never easy. But it is nice when you end up on top. So congratulations to the teams, the individuals, and obviously to their parents for raising such fantastic young people. The future looks bright.
That's it.
Here in the Cayman Islands.
Absolutely. I echo everything you have said, Mr.
Thank you, my friend. We have, unfortunately, we got some good news, but basically all news emanating from the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service and everything going forward. So I figure in the few minutes that we have remaining, what thought came to mind was yesterday you were on assignment. That's what I told everybody. You were on assignment at a conference hosted by
That's the story, and we're sticking to it?
That's the story, we're sticking to it. But before he left, he unplugged the plug that ran the studio, but I'm just saying. But yeah, you went to a Department of Tourism conference. Can you give us a few of the highlights as to what you learned, or if anything?
Yeah. Talk about putting your friend on the spot.
Yep.
No, first of all, I mean, it was a function taking place down there, being put on by the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. I thought it went really, really well.
Okay.
It was well attended. I can't tell you exactly what that number is, but my guess would be around 400 or 500 persons were down there. And the president of the CETA, Cayman Islands Tourism Association, Ms. Charlene Brinkus, again, she gave a speech as well. Great job. We also had a speech from the Deputy Premier, the Honorable Gary Ratty.
Yes.
And also from the Department of Tourism, the head, Ms. Rosa Harris.
Okay.
So it was very informative. I thought it was good in terms of trying to bring all the stakeholders together, rallying the troops, giving them information, in terms of a new ad, caution Cayman, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And giving some percentages as it relates to stayovers. And just really, I thought it came across well as something to just keep the stakeholders involved and, make them feel know that they're a part of it.
Right.
And hearing it from the government or the department that, listen, cruise tourism, or not cruise tourism, but stayover visitors, cruise tourism, period, is something that we're depending on you to do, as well, or be a part of the team. It's all of us pulling and doing this together. I thought it felt really, really good to hear all of that.
That's excellent.
Obviously, I was looking to hear what was being said specifically more so about cruise. And Mr. Redding, his speech, which we didn't actually get the actual speech. I'm hoping to get that. But basically was saying that they understand that there's some challenges in the industry, to put it that way, and that they were working on a national cruise tourism sort of plan, would be bringing stakeholders together and trying to have a plan within the next 6 months. And I guess sort of putting together some contingencies. Like I said, don't quote me on that. I'm hoping to get the exact speech so I don't misquote him if I haven't already done.
Right.
But it was, to some degree, a little level of comfort to know that they are paying a little bit of attention to the cruise and seeing that there's going to be people who are really going to be hurting very soon. And to the best of my knowledge, he actually threw out some of the numbers that I think I had mentioned on here as well, where we're potentially looking at very soon, 2026, 2027, you're going to get down to as low as 700 and something thousand people. And again, you're bearing in mind the country is going from 1.9 million to 700 and something thousand.
Yeah.
So you can see that. I mean, what percentage is that? Let me just do a quick math on that, because let's see, 790, let's say 790,000 divided by 19 million.
More than half, for certain.
So that's you're down to 41% of what you had. That's potentially what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that just picture that sort of impact on any business. That's not going to be good. So clearly there's some things that has to take place, and it's going to be interesting to see what the government comes up with.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that one way, shape, or another, that the Association for Cruise Tourism will be able to sit at the table of discussions and round table and think tanks in terms of solutions. I'm hopeful that that can actually happen. Not necessarily any promises at this point, but we're hoping.
You're hoping indeed. Well, as you stated, I mean, it would appear the government don't have their targets set on cruise at all, having missed the Florida Cruise and Caribbean Association big meeting that was held a couple days ago. Was it days or
about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, but the fact is that's a huge meeting for interest in the Caribbean, and
so you get
a man to be missing from that. Certainly, he's got to send some very strong signals to the cruise lines,
especially after the vote.
Exactly, it's so hot on the heels of the referendum vote.
No, you're absolutely right. And again, like I'm trying obviously to keep as much optimism in my voice as possible, but
why would you do that?
Well, because I want to remain optimistic. I like to give people a fair chance.
Yeah,
you can't just say I just came out and just start beating that guy right away. My God, you don't give him a chance.
Should have been running your mouth.
Be
thankful I didn't send you to Alligator Alcatraz.
Right, so you just give everybody a chance because I think that's what everybody deserves, is they deserve a chance.
Fair enough.
And I hear the verbiage, and I'm just hoping that stuff will all come true, and that, we can because at the end of the day, like we always say, it's the government fails, the country is failing. And in this case, we really need something to be done about tourism, period, and definitely in relation to cruise tourism.
Indeed.
So hopefully something will happen.
Well, 59 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. We're going to have to pause, take a short commercial break, check in with the top of the hour news, brought to you by our news partner, the BBC. But there will be lots more Straight Talk still to come. Phone lines are open at 745-2626, right here on Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
Bold news from the BBC.
Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Hamas says it has submitted a positive response to mediators over a Gaza ceasefire proposal, adding that it is seriously ready to enter immediate negotiations. It is not confirmed whether it will accept the proposals. Aoni Wells in Jerusalem has more details.
The proposal is thought to include a proposal to release in a staggered manner 10 living hostages from Gaza and also release the bodies of 18 hostages who are believed to be dead in exchange for some Palestinians in Israeli jails. It's also thought to include things like allowing more aid into Gaza and perhaps a staggered removal of some Israeli troops from Gaza. But what is not in it may prove to be more significant, because we know that one of the main sticking points throughout these negotiations has been that Hamas wants Israel to commit to ending the war after a 60-day ceasefire.
Israel has continued its intense bombardment of Gaza, ordering evacuations in the southern city of Khan Yunis. Medics at the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis said the Israeli military had carried out an airstrike on a tent encampment. The hospital is one of the last functioning medical facilities in Gaza. The UN says 85% of Gaza is now under displacement orders. President Trump has signed his flagship package of tax and spending cuts into law at a ceremony that coincides with Independence Day celebrations. The bill makes permanent tax cuts introduced in his first term that largely benefit wealthier Americans, while slashing support for the less well-off. Before the signing, President Trump spoke to crowds from the balcony of the White House.
We're going to make official the greatest victory yet when I signed the one big, beautiful bill. And before I start, I want to tell you that I've never seen people so happy in our country because of that, because so many different groups of people are being taken care of, the military and civilians of all types, jobs of all types.
Frantic searches are underway in the U.S. state of Texas after flash floods killed at least 13 people. The Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, said more than 20 girls at a summer camp were still unaccounted for. He told a news conference rescue efforts were ongoing.
We have 14 choppers, 12 drones, 9 rescue teams, swimmers in the water, rescuing adults and children out of trees. We have 400 to 500 people on the ground from all of our various units.
Heavy rain set off deadly flooding along the Guadalupe River, which rose 8 metres in just 45 minutes overnight. BBC News. Poland's biggest river, the Vistula, has fallen to a record low level in Warsaw as a result of a severe drought. Hydrologists expect it to fall further in the coming days. The low river level is threatening water and power supplies. Large areas of Europe are still experiencing an early summer heat wave. The Council of Europe's Human Rights Commissioner has said the Serbian authorities are using excessive force to curb ongoing anti-government demonstrations. Michal O'Flaherty said he was concerned by arbitrary detentions and particularly the arrests of children over the past week. He also highlighted the number of students being charged with criminal offences or needing hospital treatment. Dutch and German intelligence agencies have warned that Russia's use of chemical weapons in Ukraine is intensifying. Both countries have accused Moscow of using more potent agents, including the choking agent chloropicrin. The chemical can be fatal in high concentrations in enclosed spaces. Anna Holligan reports.
Since 2022, there have been approximately 9,000 documented attacks involving toxic munitions in Ukraine, according to figures cited by Dutch intelligence and based on Ukrainian government data. Chemical weapons are being used to flush Ukrainian troops out of defensive positions, exposing them to conventional attacks. The Dutch defence minister condemned Russia's systematic and large-scale use of chemical weapons as completely unacceptable and a danger to the security of Europe and the wider world.
Japan's government has announced it will release more rice from its dwindling stockpile to counter a shortage that sent prices skyrocketing. This round will be targeted at makers of rice-based products, including sweets and alcohol. Government rice has been sold at comparatively low prices at stores since ministers first made the rare decision to dip into reserves. BBC News.
Views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, hey man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM with your hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris, as we broadcast live over your radio dial and simulcast live over YouTube and Facebook at the key search word Straight Talk Radio Show. Happy Friday to all within the sound of our voice. Hopefully some of you might be on the road, maybe on your way to your favorite watering hole, but in all circumstances, hopefully you got your ears on and enjoying our program. As we said during the last segment, we got lots of information to share with you, but we're not quite yet finished with Ellio's field trip to the Kevin Tourism Association
I like that
conference yesterday.
And that brings out the youth in me when you say field trip. The last time I remember that, I was in middle school going to watch and catch butterflies. Thank you.
Backpack on.
Thank you for that nostalgic.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That was great. So again, Austin, and to the general public, it was a wonderful meeting. I don't have the exact numbers, but like I said, I would probably guess around 400 or 500 people were there.
Wow.
And as I said, the thing that struck me the most was I thought that it looked like the entire Department of Tourism was there.
That's what happens when you give away free food.
But no, I was coming more and I'd be kind. But the thing of it is that I thought they did an excellent job, all of them, in terms of, really rallying the troops and making everybody really know that they're a member of the team. I think I would walk away definitely feeling very motivated by that. I want to comment specifically on Mr. Ruddy. I've first of all, I've known the gentleman for years, and I've always found him to be a very, very nice and easy person to get along with. And I enjoyed his speech. First of all, he was up there speaking without glasses on, and once or twice he made a bump and talked about how I need to put on my glasses. And he just has a wonderful sense of humor.
Sure.
And I thought that made the delivery in itself something, worth listening to. So he was very jovial. And he also shared with the public that, he brings as the Minister of Tourism, not just, some academics or, a passion, but also something that he has been involved with personally as the owner of a hotel, et cetera. And I think bringing that, or mentioning that little bit of experience and stuff, I'm pretty sure adds additional comfort to him and regional and to the world for those persons who are listening.
Mm-hmm.
On the specifics of the cruise sector, and by the way, I want to apologize because I did email Miss Rosa Harris this morning about trying to get the speech, and Miss Gina Matthews, the efficient Gina Matthews, did send it through to me, but I didn't realize it was in my email.
Well, speaking of apologies,
Okay.
When you were talking last about obviously the decline in cruise numbers, whilst you said 1.9 million cruise was the high, for whatever reason I had, in my head as you were talking, mind you, but
heard the 1.9.
I heard the 1.9, but I thought 1.2. Hence, when I said 700,000, I said, oh, well, that's definitely more than half. But no, 700 is not more than half of 1.9.
You're probably bringing out the government and the MP and you thinking about the FCCA guaranteed numbers of 1.2 million. That's probably what you're thinking about. Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. So I wasn't wrong. I was only mistaken.
Yeah, so the only time I was wrong
was
when I thought I was wrong.
When I thought I was wrong, and then I was only mistaken.
Slight error.
Error.
So I'd just like to read I'd like to read two things, probably on the cruise sector section, and then also his conclusion. So on the cruise sector, for those persons who are interested, and of course there are many persons who are very concerned. And there were a lot of persons there in the cruise industry well represented yesterday, and I appreciate all those persons coming out as well. So cruise sector, turning now to cruise. And again, I'm reading from the speech given by the Deputy Premier. I know that some of you here today represent the cruise sector and have expressed concerns due to the outcome of their referendum. So I want to clearly state for the record that I am committed to ensuring that the cruise sector remains a strong, sustainable pillar of our tourism industry. Based on the current forecast, passenger arrivals for 2025 are projected to be a little over 1.15 million, which is about 80,000 passengers or 6% higher than passenger arrivals in 2024. Current projections indicate similar passenger arrivals in 2026, and we are currently showing 790,943 passenger arrivals for 2027. It should be noted that the figures for 2027 are still 2 years in advance and are subject to change when cruise lines submit their schedule of expected calls for 20. What did I just do here now? I'm like, I lost it now. Hold on. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Somebody said he was an IT man in the previous.
Hold on.
Not your fault.
You hit something, So, yeah, believe it or not. Current projections indicate, so again, 790,943 passenger arrivals for 2027. It should be noted that the figures for 2027 are still 2 years in advance and are subject to change when the cruise lines submit their schedules of expected calls for 2027 and 2028 to the Port Authority later this year. I appreciate the cruise sector's value to our economy, to jobs, and to the many small businesses that depend on its success, to pay their mortgages, raise their families, and educate their children. But I also understand that the cruise industry is evolving. Passenger expectations are shifting, and competition from other ports continue to grow. I regard these things not as threats, but as opportunities to redefine our cruise product so that it is more sustainable, more strategic, and provides more benefits to Caymanians. I'll be working alongside my ministry team to develop a comprehensive national cruise strategy that will be, 1, rooted in data, 2, informed by stakeholder input, and 3, aligned with market trends. This will not be a document that sits on a shelf, but rather will provide clear direction for how we manage and grow this sector in the future. I'm aware that developing a comprehensive cruise strategy and collecting and analyzing data will take time. So in parallel, I'll be working with my team on having an interim cruise tourism plan in place by the end of this year. The interim plan will guide our actions over the next 12 months, ensuring that we remain focused and responsive while the broader strategy is being finalized. In addition, I am committed to maintaining the ministry's long-standing relationship with cruise lines. I also plan to attend the FCCA conference this October, where I will personally engage with cruise line executives to discuss their long-term plans for the Cayman Islands. Just like the stayover side of the industry, the cruise sector is about people, our people, and I am committed to ensuring that Caymanian tour guides, transport operators, artisans, and vendors are not left behind as the industry evolves. I will help to provide training and upskilling opportunities for those who want to pivot their services. And I will do my best to ensure that our cruise product is not only profitable, but is also proudly Caymanian, proudly welcoming, and proudly world-class. Again, let me be clear, cruise tourism is not a second-tier product and is not something we do on the side. It is and must remain an integral part of our tourism economy. I will treat it with the seriousness and strategic focus it deserves to ensure that it is resilient, relevant, and rewarding for our visitors and for our people. So again, as I said, the verbiage is there. I'm definitely going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And
Seems genuine as well, very genuine.
And I look forward to seeing him fulfill it. Like I said, he's a wonderful person in terms of personality, and he's shared his experience and his thoughts and ideas, and we just look now to see something fulfilled. I like what he said in the conclusion in terms of his vision, overall vision for cruise tourism. And if you'll bear with me, I'll read that.
Yep.
Folks, I know I have talked for quite some time, probably longer than you wanted me to, so I will leave you with one final thought. If I had to distill my vision for tourism in one single goal, it would be that every single visitor who comes to our shore leaves here already planning their return trip. I want them to feel such warmth, connection, and joy that they go home and tell the world, you have to go to Cayman. Everything I do in this role, every meeting, every policy, every investment will be in pursuit of that outcome. And I invite you to join me in that mission. For those of you I haven't had the chance to meet yet, I look forward to connecting with you during the networking session that follows this forum. Please come up, introduce yourself, and tell me what's on your mind. I look forward to speaking with you. Thank you all for your attention today. It has been my absolute pleasure. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless these beloved Cayman Islands, which we all call home. And thank him for that God bless you part 2. And I had to cut out early to come back to the show. Well, I didn't have to, but
well,
duty calls.
I did.
I wanted to come back.
Kind of, slipped in here just a little bit before 5:45.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wow, that was a rather short conference by government standards, but
yeah. So yeah, I left a little bit early, but I had a chance really quickly to just ask him a question again. On the whole issue of cruise tourism with respect to ACT, perhaps being able to sit at that roundtable discussion in terms of his national strategic plan as it relates to cruise. But I would also say that I left early, but I did get good feedback that the minister pretty much was talking to people continuously. Everyone was coming up and having their fair share of having chats and questions and comments. And that he did that all the way up, I think, until around 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so, again, I just really want to commend the minister. I think that he did an excellent job yesterday. And he has my confidence. I look forward to him fulfilling a lot of the things that he has said. Do that, and I'm happy with it for sure. And again, to the Department of Tourism, to people like Ms. Gina Matthews, and again, Ms. Rosa Harris did an excellent job. She has a wonderful personality, and I think she's doing an awesome job from everything I can see. So, just congrats to the entire team and to all the stakeholders. We're proud of all of them as well, and we just hope that we can carry the country forward as it relates to tourism, cruise and stayovers.
Very good. Well, again, an optimistic and upbeat message coming from the Honorable Deputy Premier and Minister of Tourism. And clearly, just from the level of enthusiasm in which you shared that report, certainly was very, how should we say, optimistic for my colleague as well. And that's, I think that's all positive news.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I think all of us have to give in the minute, and I think we do this, but just to stress it, highlight it, give everybody a fair chance. It's your turn to bat. Let's see what you do.
That's right.
And I'm going to give him my full confidence, and I'll be here to give accolades where it is, and attaboys and everything else. But of course, if there's something that needs a little, public staring and prodding, I'll do that too.
In the rear to get you back on track.
That could be one way to put it. So again, congratulations, everyone. Excellent job yesterday.
Well, thank you again for that report. And remember, you heard it here first on Straight Talk. The activities and in particular the comments emanating from the new Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Gary Ruddy, speaking at this event that took place. Was it the Marriott, right?
Yes, it took place at the Marriott. And again, that was great too. The arrangement there. So the Marriott's always been one of those little go-to places as well, right?
Sure.
Since I was a little boy, let's put it that way. But yeah, the venue was the Marriott. Started at 4 o'clock, pretty much on time.
Wow.
And yeah, it pretty much stopped just about around 5:30 when it was supposed to in terms of the speeches.
Right.
And there wasn't any Q&A. I was a little bit surprised about that, but then that's probably good too because they kind of made it more of a social thing where that you would get more of that interaction, and I think that was excellent. So
created more one-on-one
time.
Always
right.
Desirable and
because sometimes the Q&A can get out of control, and you have the oh God, do I have to hear that? And
yeah, indeed,
somebody wants to make a speech rather.
That's right. Take away the microphone.
It's like is this a Q&A or an S&A?
That's right. That's why most moderators or persons helping the moderators don't let go of the microphone when,
don't let it go.
Offering it to the crowd. Say, here, you can talk, but I'm going to hang on to this because some people hold on to it, really. Well, we talked about, having only basically news, I won't say crime news to report on this Friday, but after that incredibly optimistic report coming from my colleague Ellio Solomon on the conference that was held with the Department of Tourism and the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. Yeah. I don't want to sully the next 10 minutes with otherwise bad news. Well, not all bad news, but it is in many cases upsetting news. So I will move away from that for right now and instead share some details over the reshuffling of the deck chairs. The government, the National Coalition for Caymanians, it really has become a bit of the norm where the Premier, in this case, the Honorable Andre Ebanks, has cited that he's made various ministerial changes to the responsibility of some cabinet members, though honestly, looking at the lineup, I think there were more changes on the parliamentary secretary side than perhaps in the ministries. But you tell me as I read off these new lists and newly updated list of responsibilities. Listen carefully on the cabinet side. I couldn't spot anything different than what we first reported on shortly after the elections. But I do see visibly some changes on the parliamentary secretary side. But the Cayman Islands government published its final and newly revised organizational chart on Wednesday, showing some movement in the 8 ministries, but also numerous authorities, boards, councils, and commissions across the new government organizational chart. The new formal structure and list of responsibilities took effect on Tuesday, the 1st of July. And according to the Premier, restructuring our ministries to create more focused and coordinated portfolios enable us to receive greater attention to critical policy areas like Caymanian employment, education, and housing. Our goal, he said, is to deliver meaningful and measurable outcomes for our people, and he was pleased that that work was already underway. So here is the lineup, and now I guess the fixed responsibilities, barring any last-minute changes further down the road. Starting with the Honourable Premier himself, Andre Ebanks will obviously be Premier, but he's also Minister for Financial Services, Commerce, and the Cabinet Office. Meanwhile, Honourable Gary Ruddy, Deputy Premier, also Minister of Tourism and Trade Development. Honourable Isaac Rankin, also Minister for Social Development and Innovation, as well as Minister for Youth, Sports, Culture, and Heritage. Meanwhile, Honourable J. Ebanks will be Minister of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing, and Infrastructure. Again, so far, no real changes. Honourable Catherine Ebanks Wilkes will be Minister of Health, Environment, and Sustainability. Honourable Ralston Anglin, Minister of Finance and Economic Development, and Minister of Education and Training. We've got Honourable Nicholas DaCosta, Minister for District Administration and Home Affairs. The Honourable Michael Miles, Minister of Caymanian Employment and Immigration. So that ministry has gone through a number of responsibility name changes from human resources during the 2017 to 21 administration that I was a part of to something in the middle, and now Caymanian Employment and Immigration. So looking on the labor side and undoubtedly the border control side of immigration. And that rounds off the cabinet ministries. On the parliamentary secretary side, Honorable Wayne Panton will be parliamentary secretary responsible for Caymanian employment and immigration, infrastructure, health, environment and sustainability, financial services, and commerce. And as I look at that list, I think Caymanian employment and immigration has been added to his list of responsibility as per the last time we shared these details. So that's new. Meanwhile, Heather Bodden will be parliamentary secretary responsible for social development, education, training, and tourism. And I believe she also had tourism at the beginning, but education and training may have been added. Likewise, rounding off the parliamentary secretary side, we have Mrs. Julie Hunter. She will be parliamentary secretary responsible for planning, lands, agriculture, housing, and infrastructure, as well as education and training, culture, and heritage. So she's going to be sharing her time between at least three ministers, the Honourable J. Ebanks, the Honourable, I want to say Ralston Anglin, and the Honourable Isaac Rankin on the culture and heritage side. So that is the new organizational chart that make up the government.
I heard innovations or something under Isaac. I don't recall hearing that before.
No, I think you're right as well. I don't, as I say it, I think innovation certainly was added to his list of responsibilities. Perhaps so too was social development. I mean, I know I have a running list of what we talked about back when, and I suppose I could scroll up and see where we were at, early June or early May, rather.
We can double check it at some point.
Yeah, but I was hoping to go largely from memory. And again, like I said, I think the majority of these changes occurred from the...
Can you just do a head count on the ministers? How many ministers do you have? As far as I know, you're supposed... 8?
8 ministers. Well, let's see. Actually, hang on.
Supposed to be 7, isn't it?
Supposed to be 7. Hang on. Let's see. I can do a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nope, 8 ministers.
That would explain why Michael's in the back.
Yes, 8 ministers. Of course, that's counting the premier who takes up a ministry as well.
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ministers and 3 parliamentary secretaries.
But is that the standard? I thought initially back in the day it used to be like 4 or something, and then it was supposed to go to 7.
Well, I believe you are right. I want to say under our administration, it was 7, but there were talks at that time by the Honorable Sir Alden McLaughlin to introduce an 8th ministry for the same reason. I mean, it's not, as the skeptics would say, well, everybody loves this big paycheck. But really, when you look at, for example, J.E. Banks, he's got planning, lands, agriculture, housing, and infrastructure. Those are 5 separate and distinct individual ministries with a lot of moving parts. Then you got finance, economic development, education, and training. Huge responsibilities. Likewise, Caymanian employment, immigration. Again, these, you got to give the cabinet and largely the leadership of government some credit that one individual really is taking on a lot of responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And the argument certainly, can be made that with this many responsibilities, how can we really guarantee
be really effective?
Be really effective in all of them. I mean, they're only human. But again, this is why you have the assistance of the parliamentary secretaries. I think since that nomenclature came online, I think it was preceded by councillors, which basically is another way what the rest of the Caribbean calls junior ministers. But really utilizing them to help carry the heavy load is necessary, and it does lend itself and work towards a more efficient run government. So
it seems to be saying 8. It seems to be saying 8 in terms of the Constitution. I mean, premier, deputy premier, and 6 other ministers. But for some reason, I don't know why I had that 7 in the back of my mind.
Yeah, well, you weren't alone. I had it there as well. 28 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time in studios, and we do need to pause and take a short commercial break, check in with some of our supporters and those persons that keep the lights on for us. The phone lines remain open. 745-2626 is the number, but don't think about changing that dial. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come up next on Bobo 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
Cayman, Units is here, the island's newest move-in and storage solution. Our robot delivery system allows you to put your unit almost anywhere while providing level loading, uploading, and minimizing shifting. What's even better, no time constraints. Pack at your own pace for moving or store as long as you need. Short-term or long-term, at the home or on the job site. Units, fast, safe, and secure. Check us out at units.ky and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
At Priced Right, spending less on everyday products is easy.
Spend less on office supplies, tools, and automotive products.
Spend less on groceries, fresh produce, and meat.
Spend less on electronics, TVs, and speakers.
Spend less on home furnishings, beauty products, and apparel.
At Priced Right, we believe you can live better for less.
To start saving, visit us at the Airport Center in Georgetown or at Republic's Plaza in West Bay.
For more info, visit pricedright.ky. Live better for less at Priced Right.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately. And
that's fine. We know you love it.
we just don't understand how you could afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu starting at just $3. Gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shetton Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value meals. The deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
We all work hard to one day buy the house of our dreams. Why wouldn't you protect it? With Saxon, you now have the option to get a home insurance quote online. Avoid the waiting in lines and the traffic. Simply log on to saxon.ky and click to get a quote to get started. At Saxon, we pride ourselves on providing our customers with excellent customer service and convenience. So what are you waiting for? Visit saxon.ky today from the comfort of your home or office to get your quote and protect the things you love. Saxon. Smart insurance.
At
At Polar Bear Air Conditioning, we believe in helping you to avoid costly mistakes and replacements. That's why we offer a quarterly maintenance program at a discounted price. You'll receive a 10% discount on all repairs, accessories, and services. Priority front-of-the-line customer status, reminders of your service, and no overtime rate for after-hours calls. Why not save money and avoid hassle with Polar Bear Air Conditioning? Need service now? Book our AC special for just $99. Book the next available technician at polarbear.ky. That's polarbear.ky.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, Cayman, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcast live over YouTube and Facebook. We're your hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. Happy Friday to you as the phone lines remain open at 745-2626 here in studios, or you can take advantage of our WhatsApp line by dialing 928-2562 and either sharing a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. 33 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time in studios. And I guess, Ellio, we've put it off long enough. I suppose we got to get to law and order and some of the crime news. It's not all bad, but there's at least one well, there's definitely one that's a little more than distressing. But let's start with the one that is the most upbeat as possible. Reporting from the media headlines, I don't remember which one I pulled this one down from, I'll be honest. This says Devon Emmanuel Wright, age 33, who currently lives in Boddentown, has now been charged with the abduction and murder of 2-year-old Alisade Powell, whose body was found on the Iron Shore in Cayman Brac back in 2022. Wright is currently in police custody and is due to appear, or was due to appear in court on Thursday morning. That'll be yesterday. Wright was arrested in December last year after a long and some might say controversial investigation. In December, the police arrested Wright, as well as the child's mother and another woman, on the basis that they were the last people who were seen with the child when she was alive, and have since confirmed that Alisade had been suffocated or strangled. Wright is the only person to have been formally charged with the abduction and subsequent murder of the 2-year-old little girl. I think she was 2-year-old.
Yeah, that's what you just said.
The RCIPS said they, during a press briefing on Thursday, that more details were expected to be revealed, but unfortunately I didn't catch that press conference. But the case is more than 3 years old, and I think I saw in today's Cayman Compass headlines at that press briefing, the police commissioner, Kurt Walton, basically congratulating the cold case squad for what was defined as meticulous police work leading to this arrest for a case that, in many cases, certainly has haunted residents of the sister islands, but likewise all of us on all three islands when we talk about the horrific nature in which a young baby, frankly, lost her life. So that matter is, I guess, offering some closure to the family, but undoubtedly, as the case begins in court, there will still be a lot of opportunities to reopen some of those painful wounds, and we just sit back and wait to see what the outcome will be from that exercise.
Well, congratulations to the Royal Cayman Islands Police, and hoping now that everything has been set in proper order, in addition to the meticulous investigation, in terms of presentation of all this facts before the courts, and that there's going to be proper legal closure in it as well.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Staying with the RCIPS, and again, somewhat positive and upbeat news. The police reported today in the Cayman Compass that there is no third party suspected in the deaths of either the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority anti-money laundering regulator Judy-Ann Miles, or in the disappearance of local journalist Andrell Harris. The 47-year-old who was head of the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority's anti-money laundering division was found in the driver's seat of a burning SUV in a remote part of Lookout Gardens, Bodden Town on April the 3rd. Detectives had previously indicated that the fire was or could have been started deliberately. But now, apparently, after a 3-month investigation involving forensic pathologists and fire investigators, the file has now been referred to the coroner's office. Commissioner Kurt Walton, at the press briefing, said he wouldn't be drawn out on how the police or why the police believe that Miss Miles died, how she died, and saying that that would be determined after the public inquest. But again, they did stipulate that they don't believe it was murder. So I think that is somewhat encouraging news, to the extent that there were a lot of fears, and it brought back a lot of painful memories, this recent death of the 47-year-old Caymanian. And, of course, there was a lot of speculation in the public domain, but according to the police, there are no suspects. There is no consideration that murder was the cause of this unfortunate death, really. Similarly, in the case of the Compass Media journalist Andrell Harris, Commissioner Walton said police had concluded that there was likewise no third-party involvement in his disappearance. Harris, of course, was last seen on CCTV walking towards Pedro Castle, but clothing and other items belonging to him were found in the water off the coastline as part of at least a week-long search effort by Coast Guard, police, and other marine and uniform support services, as well as members of the public. The police did state, however, that inquiry into the journalist Andrell Harris remains a open missing persons investigation. So the file has not been closed and remains open, but they do believe that murder was not the suspected cause of that incident as well. Again, no body was recovered, so I guess they can't declare anything. But certainly it is being listed as a missing person investigation. But they believe there were no third parties involved in that activity. So on both counts, I think certainly from the family perspective, it allows a degree of closure. But certainly for Mr. Harris's family, obviously the absence of knowing for certain still weighs heavily on the heart and the mind. And likewise, again, we can only send out our heartfelt condolences to both the families of Miss Judy-Ann Miles and Andrell Harris.
What I understand with that one, with Miss Judy-Ann Miles, is saying something about it going to the coroner's office, right?
Yes.
But isn't the coroner office the one that, the coroner's office, isn't that the group / one that determines the death and what cause of death? I don't understand that. So you're saying there's no third party, but it's just going to the coroner's office?
But they did bring in a number of forensic pathologists, arguably from the UK. They were telling us certainly over the last 3 months that, the reason why they haven't been able to provide information is they're waiting on the report from the foreign forensic pathologist to be completed and then reviewed, et cetera, et cetera. But they did bring in a pathologist, which really at the end of the day, a coroner is. So perhaps those persons in the early investigations were able to determine a cause of death. But also to your point, if they did, then why are we going
then why are we
the coroner route? Were you being redundant, or we're just literally following the local protocol? I really don't know. These would have been interesting questions to put to Commissioner Walton at the briefing. But again, I I wasn't present. And frankly, we just simply weren't informed that it was taking place. But we're talk show hosts. We're not journalists. And once upon a time, we used to be in the media, but now we're just talk show hosts. Apparently,
we get the pleasure of just sitting and analyzing.
That's right.
But that does sound weird. No third party, but we are sending this through the coroner's office.
It does. It does sound.
And as I know, the coroner's office is the one who determines cause of death.
Yes.
The who, the when, the why, the when, the where, the what, whatever.
Yes, absolutely. I would have to certainly agree with you, Ellio. Certainly agree with you.
But, and again, it's challenging. I don't want to continue the discussion too much. I know this is painful for a lot of people, but, I imagine as a family, it's always challenging, even when you hear news like this, because on one hand, you would love to welcome that there was no third party involved, but I imagine your son disappears, your daughter's been burned in a car, whatever, you're still saying, somebody did this.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how much of a comfort that is, really, to be quite honest with you.
I would have to agree with you, my friend. Certainly, again, nothing will replace the individuals from a family perspective, and I'm sure they would much rather have their loved ones back than perhaps hear some of the news that is being shared. Again, our heart is with you all on both of these tragic circumstances, but
absolutely,
from a media perspective, we do have an obligation to present the facts as they obtain. Moving on to the final matter that is presently under investigation, and I really I saved this one for last because I struggled with, when early news broke on the subject yesterday, and it's just very troubling reading about it. But here goes. Health officials announced on Thursday that they were investigating a report of a sex crime on a minor at the HSA facility. Of course, this is the Anthony Eden Hospital. It is alleged that a 13-year-old girl was raped by an adult male while a 9-year-old boy witnessed the act. Again, if there's any truth to the allegations, the rape of a 13-year-old is hard enough to swallow, but then you think of the damage added to the young witness is just heartbreaking. Speaking at a press briefing on Thursday afternoon, Detective Superintendent Peter Lansdowne told reporters that police had received a report of inappropriate sexual activity at the ward, adding that the police are investigating a matter of gross indecency towards a child, and that is also being investigated by the Family Support Unit. Concerns had previously been raised about vulnerable children interacting with adults with mental health issues at the facility. I certainly recall our early conversation in the first month of our new talk show, where we had the distinct pleasure to host Dr. Mark Lockhart as our guest in studios. Of course, mental health was the topic of the day in that conversation. But I do recall when he was in studios, he raised the alarm that this was a concern that children or minors were being housed with adult persons either suffering from mental health issues or other concerns, and that was never a good thing, and arguably making the point, if not prophetically really, that it was a disaster in the making.
Yeah, I think he was basically saying that, just even outside of the children's issue, it's just a case that it's not the place for the mentally ill, in particular in adults, and that something needed to be done. I want to draw a distinction because on one hand, I did hear in one media house that the child had been raped, but there's a different wording coming out now, right? This gross indecency.
Yes, towards a child.
Towards a child, which does not necessarily amount to intercourse. Mm-hmm. I think that's important to note.
Yes, that's a good
point.
That
doesn't mean that could have been, but that in of itself, from everything that I know, does not amount to actual rape. But that's it. That's not to try to diminish it, that it's not something serious and important, but I think it is a distinction with a difference that's worthy of note. Rape is involving sexual intercourse, and this does not necessarily suggest, that wording does not necessarily suggest that sexual intercourse was involved.
Yes,
So it's
indeed.
important to note that.
Well, that
yeah.
I think that is. Thank you for obviously drawing that distinction and making that observation. To your point, it does soothe this otherwise open sore a little bit, but it is somewhat promising. And again, we obviously have to wait until the investigation is, gets further along before more of these details may or may not be shared in the public domain. Obviously, given the ages of those involved, we can certainly expect less rather than more information in the public domain, and that is certainly understandable. But we are hopeful that the investigation will proceed swiftly and those responsible are held to account. There is good news, though. I mean, it is Friday already, and whilst it took a while for the whole separation of minors from adults at the ward, the government has now come out, and I guess we have to congratulate the current administration for making this happen, saying that the government will no longer house adult and children patients at the public hospital's mental health ward. The Anthony S. Eaton Hospital will now become a dedicated facility to treat children with mental health issues, while older patients will now be transferred to the Poinciana Rehabilitation Center, which was recently and finally opened in East End. So I think that is also good news. Again, the warning signs were there for some time, and I guess in this case, better late than never. But, it's like we talk about traffic accidents and all that. We are always reactive, but we seem to struggle with being proactive and preventing some of these horrific events.
There's a couple of challenges with that, right? Because again, bear in mind, as I've stated before, you and I have both stated, the people of this country really haven't voted for anything too new in this administration. So again, where the responsibility specifically for health is in a new minister's hand, as a government, as in a group, CCP per se, I mean, they did have a control over the health services for quite a period of time, of which nothing arguably, at least in relation to that specific item, had happened. Kudos obviously to the previous minister and all those involved as well, that they had this Poinciana place constructed. But I also understood, and again from the Dr. Lockhart as well, that facility was not built as a sort of in any way, a little bit of a remand, if you like. It's not. It wasn't designed for that.
Correct.
So where this sounds good to some extent, the facility would have to be, I would imagine, undergo some kind of changes in order to make it a little bit more safe. And I think it's unfortunate now, considering, I mean, like, not just because I'm in East End, but people live there. It's sad that it has to be happening on the heels of this, right? Because that creates this NIMBY effect, not in my backyard. If you'd even been saying this before, fine, but now that this event has happened, people are going to be concerned, well, hold on, I'm going to have people running around my neighborhood and raping us up here or what? So I think they have to do a little bit of PR on that one.
You make a very, very good point, particular as it relates to what services specifically the Poinciana Rehabilitation Center was both designed for and will house, because you will recall undoubtedly that during the construction of this facility, which was greatly delayed for a variety of reasons, the argument was at that time that His Majesty's Prison Northward was no place to house mentally ill individuals. This was a point that, was arguably, mentioned, if not, screamed, particularly from the courtroom by judges and others who, had no other choice but to sentence individuals. But they have stated on numerous occasions that if they had a choice, they would not be sending mental health patients or persons suffering from mental health illness to prison. It wasn't obviously designed for that or for the patient themselves. So against the backdrop, we then ventured off into Poinciana. So we were aware of the shortcomings of prison and mentally ill individuals whilst we were building this facility. But despite that knowledge and the length of time it took for this facility to be completed, we still have a new facility that is not fit for purpose. And I can only think, and again, you be the judge, but this is my opinion. when you have such disconnect between the ministry policy level and the ground level as to what's actually going on, and certainly I point my finger at the former minister responsible for health, Minister Sabrina Turner, who at every opportunity distanced herself from responsibility about the delays and what was happening at Poinciana Rehabilitation Center throughout the construction phases. But had there only been a bit greater involvement at the policy level, maybe someone somewhere, whether the involvement of the Department of Children and Family Services, maybe the input from the Family Support Unit of the police, somebody might have said, oh, by the way, remember now, since we're building this thing, prison is where they currently are housed now, and we will all agree that's not ideal, but we still need to consider whilst delivering, medical help, we also have to create it securely, because there are persons that, could be a risk to themselves as well as others, and we have to fulfill dual roles, if you will. But now we have a situation where a brand new facility has been built. It is still not, addressing the gaps that obtained, which we knew about, and that only delays the help and the aid that is very clearly long overdue.
Yeah, it is an interesting issue, because I don't remember the exact, how they had things started, right? In terms of, what Poinciana, the specifics of what it is. I'm going to try to search it up on here now in terms of its key purposes. But I definitely remember hearing that it was not fit for purpose, as you said, in terms of housing these type of individuals. And why that didn't happen, I have no idea. I mean, again, not privy to the information. Maybe the minister at the time was trying to say, this particular group here that we're building Poinciana for is the larger number, and trying to deal with that. I really don't know. But it's definitely something I want to investigate a little bit. It's something we can look into some more. But it is unfortunate that if you're going to even utilize Poinciana, one, I think it has to be fitted out differently for what I understand to be going there.
Yes.
And then in addition to that, it is just sad that it has to happen on the heels of this, because now, of course, that is going to raise concerns for people living in the area.
Yes.
Anyway, but I'm going to look it up really quickly online. Maybe I can touch and comment before we leave today.
Sure.
But it would be good. It would be good to hear from the previous minister on it. Hear what she has to say. But maybe she might be addressing it. Who knows?
Who knows?
But I know the challenge is right now for the government, and again, this is where you get all this mixed up, right? Because in relation to CCP specifically, it's kind of hard to escape it, because as a government, you would say you all were still involved. You all still had the health under your control, under your remit for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And now to make it sound like, you've just taken control and that and we're on top of this.
Yeah.
It doesn't help.
And again, I just can't, I don't mean to, go on the attack on anyone, but when you consider the individuals who are affected by this decision or lack thereof of, really meaningful action, it's individual lives that are being held in the balance, persons that need help but can't receive it, persons that, you recognize shouldn't be incarcerated but certainly can't be let out to roam in the general public. And that just says to me, they're human beings in need. And when we have the opportunity to build a facility from the ground up, again, recognizing from whence, this challenge came. It's like every time you think of governments, you have to ask yourself, what is it that we're trying to fix?
Yeah.
Certainly that was the train of thought, going on in my head when I was in office and everything that I did. I'm sure it was with you. What is it that we're trying to fix so that you can actually present something that provides a solution? And, again, that solution, depending on who you ask, may, be something huge or it may be minuscule. But certainly from the policymaker's perspective, you would expect, and again, having experience in this realm, I would say that, from my standpoint, this is the position that all persons who've assumed the role of MP have, how they've approached their job. But again, I guess I can't say everyone, because we have the Poinciana Rehabilitation Center now built, now open, but still gaps exist.
Yeah.
And we really can't blame anyone except the man in the mirror.
And again, the thing I would say, again, in defense of the President Minister is that naturally she herself, in this case, Ms. Wilkes, wouldn't have had specific responsibilities for health,
No,
right?
not at all.
So she's obviously taken the action that is necessary
But she
at this
was
point.
part of the cabinet that was involved.
But unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, she still gets implicated
That
by
collective responsibility.
correct, the collective responsibility part. So, but this says in the Cayman Islands, individuals with mental illness who also have a criminal background, especially those considered dangerous to themselves or others, cannot currently be housed at Ponciana Residential Mental Health Facility because Ponciana is not a secure forensic psychiatric facility. Many individuals with serious mental illness who have committed crimes are housed at Northwood Prison, even though it's not a medical facility. This has raised major concerns about human rights and inadequate treatment. In some cases, individuals are transferred abroad, often to Jamaica or to the UK for forensic psychiatric care. This is costly and separates them from their families and support system. And Cayman does not yet have a secure forensic mental health unit, a specialized facility needed for those whose mental illness overlaps with criminal behavior, such as those found unfit to plead in court, those found not criminally responsible due to mental disorders. And wasn't there a case where I think it was like not the hound on the nationality, but there was a Jamaican national with a mental illness that raped someone some months ago as well. Mentally ill offenders requiring secure treatment. So again, it's a challenge, and it's just one of those things again where you see that we as a country just dropping the ball and nobody does anything until something happens.
Well, just listening to what you read out, clearly it said in the words that you just read that we had an opportunity to fix a gap that was clearly expressed.
I think they've been saying it since the 1990s.
Exactly. And I like your phrase, we as a government and previous governments can only blame ourselves. We dropped the ball.
Yeah.
58 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time in studios. We need to pause and check in again with the top of the hour BBC News, but keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come on Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC is the world's most trusted news source.
And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to top shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman.
On FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Hamas says it has submitted a positive response to mediators over a Gaza ceasefire proposal, adding that it is seriously ready to enter immediate negotiations. Senior Palestinian officials familiar with the talks told the BBC that Hamas has asked for amendments. Our correspondent, Ione Wells, is in Jerusalem.
The official also said that Hamas has requested that aid be distributed exclusively through the UN. Now, it's also insisted that the Israeli military should withdraw to the positions that it held in Gaza before the last ceasefire collapsed in March. And finally, Hamas is also seeking a guarantee from the US that the bombardment will not resume if the ceasefire ends without a permanent agreement being reached.
President Trump is due to meet the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington on Monday. More than a dozen people have died and about 20 children are missing following heavy rain and severe flooding in the U.S. state of Texas. A state of emergency has been declared as the authorities search for survivors along the banks of the Guadalupe River. Here's our North America correspondent, Peter Bowes.
A frantic search is underway for at least 20 girls who'd been at a summer camp with about 750 other children when the downpour started. Torrential rain fell at the rate of 11 inches per hour. Catastrophic flooding engulfed an area along the Guadalupe River in the small community of Hunt in central Texas, which is popular with campers. At least 13 people, adults and children, have been confirmed dead. Rescue efforts are being hampered by difficult access to the area after a local road was washed away.
President Trump has signed his flagship package of tax and spending cuts into law at a ceremony that coincides with Independence Day celebrations. Speaking from the White House balcony, he claimed America was winning like never before, and people wouldn't even notice the spending cuts.
Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, everybody's going to die. It's actually just the opposite. Everybody's going to live. This is just the opposite. And I just want you to know, if you see anything negative put out by Democrats, it's all a con job. And they said, and they compared it to just like the con job of Russia, 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 and all of the other things they did.
The bill makes permanent tax cuts introduced in his first term that largely benefit wealthier Americans while slashing support for the less well-off. It gives more than $100 billion to Mr. Trump's anti-immigration drive and additional funding for the military. Poland's biggest river, the Vistula, has fallen to a record level in Warsaw as a result of severe drought. The low river level is threatening water and power supplies. You're listening to the World News from the BBC. The Bosnian authorities have dropped an arrest warrant against the Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik, who is accused of attacking the constitutional order. After months of ignoring demands, he voluntarily reported to the public prosecutor's office on Friday. A joint statement said the court accepted a proposal to terminate the warrant, granting him conditional release. A former El Salvadoran defense minister and 2 retired colonels have been sentenced to 60 years in jail each for the murder of 4 Dutch journalists in 1982. A court has ruled that General José Guillermo Garcia and the 2 other officers set up an ambush for the journalists who travelled to El Salvador to film a documentary about the Civil War. Scientists have found that zooplankton, tiny marine animals, are locking away vast amounts of carbon in Antarctica's deep ocean. They've recommended the protection of zooplankton and inclusion of their role in climate models. Here's our science reporter, Georgina Ranard.
The scientists analysed what happens when the group of tiny marine animals, zooplankton, depart on an epic winter migration in Antarctica. They spend spring close to the ocean surface, gorging on carbon-rich algae and making sacs of fat in their bodies. In the winter, the creatures sink hundreds of metres to sleep and slowly burn the fat. That releases the carbon in the deep ocean, locking it away for decades or even centuries.
The rock band Oasis have performed for the first time in 16 years, delighting fans in Cardiff and Wales on the first night of their worldwide reunion tour. The 74,000 crowd sang along to hits that defined the Britpop era of the 90s, including Champagne Supernova and Wonderwall. BBC News.
The views and opinions Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcast live over YouTube and Facebook at the key search word Straight Talk Radio Show. We're your hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris, as we move into the final segment of our show for this Friday, wrapping up what certainly has been, I think, another very productive week for us here on the program.
Indeed.
In terms of the discussions as well as the guests. 7 minutes is the time in studio. 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, rather, is the time in studios, giving us about 23, maybe a little bit over 24 minutes before we have to wrap it up for the weekend, into the weekend. And oh, by the way, isn't there a public holiday on Monday? I heard.
This is what I heard. What is this one for now?
I have no idea, but let me look it up because somebody also suggested the same to me.
I think it's the last one until sometime in November or whatever.
You know what? I don't know. I think you might be right, but you know I've lost track.
Straight Talk holiday.
7. Constitution Day. Constitution.
I should have known. Yes.
Yes.
Kind of for like the 4th of July for Independence Day.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And I think you are also correct. I don't see any dots in the calendar for August, nothing for September, something in October. What's that? Nope, that's a birthday for family. That wouldn't work.
Let it all out, Austin.
Just let it all out, boo-boo. We have Remembrance Day on November 10th, but nothing after that. So I guess
you mean nothing before that?
Nothing before that, yes.
After this one.
So this will be. So the question is, are we going to be on the air or are we going to not be on the air? What do you want to do?
We're going to relax.
We're going to relax. All right, fantastic. Well, I'll be sure.
Relajamos.
Relajamos, exactly.
We're going to relax.
Indeed, I'll make sure our techs are aware of that. Well, I think we got one more bit of news item that I think fits into our discussions that we've been having this week. In particular, yesterday. Yesterday, we were talking about, well, frankly, the economic outlook for the Cayman Islands going forward against the backdrop of the amendment to the Public Management and Finance Amendment Bill 2025, in which the government has sought to extend the period of time before it presents its strategic policy statement. And, of course, in the comments emanating from the media and from Parliament, from the Honourable Minister of Finance, Ralston Anglin, suggesting that, you know, the accounts are in such a mess to a certain extent in terms of the future outlook, the forecast for, obviously, as we've been talking about, the outlook for deficit at the 31st of December 2025, and arguably the same is forecast in 2026. The current new National Coalition for Caymanians government trying to rein back and figure out what projects it can rein in, on the one instance, to avert a deficit end-of-year figure, but also determine what wiggle room they might have for maybe some of its own projects, or to determine which of the long laundry list of projects that are presently at least on the table and or committed to can in fact move forward. The silver lining in that challenging situation is that, according to the Cayman Independent, Cayman's credit rating agency the credit agency Moody has continued to reaffirm Cayman's very strong AAA or AA3 rating here for us. International credit rating agency Moody's has maintained the Cayman Islands government's AA3 bond issuer rating. It has also maintained the jurisdiction's AAA country ceiling rating and stable economic outlook in a report that was issued on the 24th of June. And it seems like a lot of technical jargon, but basically it says
good boys can pay their bills.
Exactly. Cayman as a jurisdiction has good credit. So if we are to borrow, obviously this would put us in a favorable position with lenders who would otherwise lend us some money. And they may very well have to, because in addition to, well, when the PREFU, the pre-election economic financial update, was presented just before the last general elections, I believe I remember at the time the Honorable Financial Secretary also going on record as stating, given the economic forecast for the 31st December 2025 and 2026, which both years were expected to end in deficit, he also anticipated that he didn't think the new government, whomever they would be, which was unknown at the time, but whomever they would be able to proceed in any meaningful way in 2025 without any new borrowing. So this credit rating puts us in a position that suggests when we have to go to the trough, when we have to borrow, we should be able to negotiate at least some good financing terms, because we are otherwise considered a good client.
Yeah.
And I think that is also positive news.
You got
for
good
us.
credit, boy.
But certainly and again, I'm very, very cautious when it comes down to, taking out loans. And that's a part of my personal life as well as, my approach to government. And again, we've been down this road before. We've seen where these things can end up. And it's never good.
The only person I borrow from is myself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, you're absolutely right. And you said it many, many moons ago, and it has stuck with me because the truth is simply the truth. They say the truth stands on its own merit. This takes us back to our crosstalk days where, of course, it seemed like every other weekday somebody was asking the question about, can Manchester go independent? And you made the very obvious, point that the only real independence is financial independence. Everything else is just, you're kidding yourself. Until you can say, you are masters of your own destiny in terms of your ability to spend and predict and, plan for the future without borrowing, that's independence. Anything else is, again, window dressing.
Only true form of independence is financial independence.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was Isle of Man that we had visited too, when we had here pretty much a $600-something million debt, and they had a $600-something million in savings.
Yeah.
It's like, hold on, that's the position you really want to be in. But I think there's a lot of things that Cayman can learn, and hopefully that's one of them, is that we need to just really tighten our belt and do as much as possible that you only spend what you can afford, and try to not necessarily get into too much of the borrowings. And again, like I said, this is going to be challenging. It's going to be interesting to see what the government does, because even on the cruise side, you can expect shortfalls there in terms of revenues. You've heard what I read earlier on from the minister, and it's the saying that present projections for 2027, at this point, it's around 790,000. And bear in mind, we're coming from 1.9 million cruise tourists. That's a lot of money coming out of the government coffers. I can't remember exactly what that number is in terms of the spend, but somewhere around $16, $18 per head on all those cruise passengers. Lots of money.
Yes.
And at a time that I'm pretty sure the government cannot really afford to lose any, is when they will be losing. And that's how life is. And as those persons, even in the business that Mr. Rudder was speaking to yesterday, where do they go when they have problems? They knock on the government door. So you're losing the revenues on one side, and then you have somebody knocking on your door on the other side saying, I need some money.
That's right.
So unfortunately, we might be going, as I used to say, cap in hand and borrowing.
Yes, indeed. So there it is, 15 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock is the time in studios as the clock slowly ticks down. I've run out of things to talk about.
Okay, well, one of the things I wanted to say as well, and this is coming through to me, obviously, from some source, is one of those situations of people dropping things on your dashboard.
Okay, goody, I like those. Talk to us about what was on your dashboard. And you drive a big old Ford pick-em-up truck, so that windshield is huge.
We got to remind at least the young ones, right? Because they don't know, You remember that the Speaker of the House was the one that coined that, as far as I recall. I found it on my dashboard.
That's right.
on my windshield. Windshield.
Whenever there's a reference to leaked government documents, that's where that phrase came from, that someone in the media will remain unnamed, but they said, well, how'd you get that? That's a privileged, confidential government document that hasn't been made public. And the media would say, well, I found it on my windshield. I had to read it, and then I thought I'd share it.
Yeah.
You know? It's like finding a present under your Christmas tree. You kind of figured it was meant for you, put there on purpose, and, well, sharing is caring, so why not share it?
Absolutely. Well, this is probably something that I'm going to chat a bit more in a structured way, maybe again on Monday, because, Friday is one of those watering hole days. But one of the things we're understanding is that there's at least a couple of persons, let's put it that way, within the National Coalition for Cayman,
right,
that is trying to establish a policy, and that policy is one that no persons that ran against them in a particular constituency should be allowed to participate on boards, etc., within the government. Now, and again, you wouldn't expect that a policy like that would be put in writing, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
This is something people whisper at the water cooler and whisper somewhere else and agree in closed rooms, they say, right?
Yes.
Cigars smoking and some burgundy, maybe. With the fat cats sitting in the room.
Quite right.
But bottom line of it is, if this fact, let's be clear, if this is indeed the case, and if this is true, that this is unethical to say the least, right? And even though I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that don't be surprised, this has happened, I'm pretty sure, in other governments. But nevertheless, from a governmental perspective with respect to, say, the standards in public life, what's it, Committee on Standards in Public Life, all of these things, you have to understand why this is a problem. This is a problem because really at the end of the day, what you're supposed to be doing is putting the best people that you can to help run the country. Mm-hmm. You can't take the attitude, and this is where all this victimizing, this is a part of victimization. Austin just happens to have ran in an area. Well, he might want to run again, So we're not putting him on the board. Mm-hmm. In fact, we're not even going on his talk show.
Right.
This is the nonsense that goes on. And so you're going to have persons that have something to lend to this country, has something they can give to this country in terms of helping to make it better. But you're not going to do that simply because I don't want my political opponent or even potential political opponent to be involved. Because you know what that means? I'm thinking more about my seat.
Yes.
I'm thinking more about my return to office.
Yes.
Rather than getting up and thinking about what's right for the country.
Yes.
So we need to go down a list, because this is not going to be a written policy. But if we go down the list, we're going to check and see what happens, because the rubber has to meet the road.
Yes.
So it would mean, for example, in no particular order, you're going to have people that are not necessarily going to be involved in the running of the country. One of those persons is the past Minister of Health that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. She would have ran against someone who is now a member of the government.
Yeah.
Right? That's coming to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You have, what's the other guy there? Sterling Dween that ran against the present premier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, clearly he's not going to be given a chance if that's indeed the policy. You can't get involved, can't work in the service, can't work on a board. Then you would have, again, Jordan Rivers,
yes,
who ran against the Minister of Finance.
Yes.
So, like I said, this is what's been put on our windshield, to use that terminology. And we're going to watch and see what happens, because bottom line of it is, I can tell you that to me is, and I'll get the legislation to support it, but that's unethical, it's corruption, it's victimization.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line of it is, your seat and your possible return to office is not the priority of your government, nor should it be your priority.
Mm-hmm.
Your priority is to do what is best for the country and the best for the people of the Cayman Islands, and not your potential return to office.
Absolutely.
So we're going to say, we sure hope that there's some inaccuracies there, but I think we'll be able to watch and the evidence will show itself, right?
Yes.
We shall see we shall see who is involved and who gets involved and who doesn't get involved. And I want persons to know, because I know that there might be some persons saying, well, no, but this government hasn't come on our program. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand, Mr. Harris and I have good experience when it comes to talk shows. When we used to work on Crosstalk, it was the same argument. The government wasn't coming on, and they weren't doing this, and they weren't doing that. But at the end of the day, it changes, you see, because there's a watering hole. And sometime between now and the next 4 years, you'll learn exactly where that watering hole is. And we're just going to do our job and hold people accountable. We're going to speak the facts as it is. If we happen to get something wrong, we'll tell you that we're sorry and we got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll give accolades and attaboys, as I gave some to the minister today, the Minister for Tourism. I can assure you, it'll be the same thing tomorrow. If you do something wrong, we'll prod you.
Yes.
We'll prod you. And if you still refuse to do good, then we'll flog you. So you kind of get from accolades, attaboys to prodding and then flogging. But that we're going to do our job. But like I said, this is the information coming in, and I'm saying this not just out of speculation. I'm getting this from very good sources.
Yes, plural.
Sources.
Yes, plural, indeed.
That the government is pretty much implementing a policy that anyone who ran against any of those members in the last election, and again, I'm adding this, maybe that goes to potential, I have no idea, but definitely what you're getting, anyone who ran against them is not going to be serving on boards or playing
blacklisted
or playing a role in the government. That, ladies and gentlemen, is just completely wrong. And that is not the way you run the country.
It is not the way you run the country, and I'm reminded again, and I'm privileged to have taken this oath, so I and you too.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm talking about, and I remember it. New MPs who are elected after an election campaign, which again, it can be ugly, it can not be pretty, but that's politics. But when that is over and the people of this country have elected their 19 and they go and they stand before the governor or what is now the speaker's chair, we take an oath. It's an oath that says, and again, I paraphrase, but I believe it's something along the lines that I do swear that I will well and truly serve His Majesty King Charles III, as well as, and I will do right to all manner of people according to the law of the Cayman Islands without fear, favor, affliction, or ill will. So help me, Almighty God.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's pretty close to what, the oath of office that I took, that you took. Again, I may have missed out a few words, but it is a significant oath of office. You are pledging and you are swearing before Almighty God that this is your responsibility. This is what you've been elected for. And to do anything contrary to that makes you, frankly, unworthy to carry the title of MP, whether you are honorable or not.
Where you call honorable. And we are supposed to be putting the country and its people first, not our re-election, right? That's and like I said, there's a naturalness that comes with this, right? Like it seems natural.
Yes.
And this is where I talked about, what time is it? Time check, 6:24.
6:24.
And this is where I talk about what comes natural. Is what's that natural thing in terms of what you do is what separates an amateur from a professional. I gave the example before about the football player. That he's jumping in the air to catch a football, and what is natural for him to do is to put his feet out so that he doesn't fall flat on his face. Mm-hmm. But the professional does that. He does not do that. He lets his leg drop and he falls flat on his face because he wants to make sure that his feet is inbounds and he gets a touchdown.
Right.
Okay, or he at least gains some yardage. And it's the same thing in terms of politics. What will feel natural is to defend your seat and to make sure that you can get reelected. That is what comes naturally, but that is not the right thing to do. What is the right thing to do is to do whatever you can. Get the resources wherever you can to make sure that you're doing the best job, to deal with that deficit, to deal with that remand center, that mental health facility that needs to be constructed. Getting all of these things done and utilizing whatever reasonable resources you can, and not simply highlighting, that Mr. Harris, I know what he said about me.
Mm-hmm.
He said that back in 1991. I'll never forget that.
Yes.
He not serving on no board, not beside of him.
Yeah.
No, we need to kind of drop that attitude.
Yeah. And you know what you say is not just meant in tongue in cheek. It It is a reality.
It
is how people think, it's how people talk, and it's how people act.
That's it.
That is the reality.
And when is it going? When is it going to end?
Yeah, when is it going to end? And you know what? Again, I said this yesterday, but from the context of the importance and the need for a national updated development plan, but more importantly, when those meetings eventually kick off, we have to ensure that there's as wide as participation as possible, and not just the usual suspects, the usual concerned citizens or activists that usually come out to public meetings, but perhaps more so of the wider majority, because like this subject, the development plan does impact all of our lives, and if we're not careful, we're going to lose that cultural identity. Taking a look at what I think our guest Roy Bodden talked about, is happening in Northwest Point right now in terms of architecture, and the whole island feel, traditional feel of West Bay has been literally shown the door. But again, with this subject, particularly of that sort of approach, that is why you hear, particularly the foreign nationals who are in the majority now in this country, by the way, us Caymanians are in the minority. But this is what breeds that argument that, well, you gave us status, naturalization, when are you going to let us run for office and let us occupy office? If we continue to fight amongst ourselves, if we continue to personify this unnecessary crabs in the bucket mentality, if we continue to deprive persons who legitimately, by experience or knowledge, can make a contribution, and you stand in their way, then who do we have to blame when the system changes?
And I just want to add, let me just say this, breaking news, right? I want to add, it is important that we understand and appreciate the persons who give us information when we talk about putting something on our windshield, because people are trying to get the facts out there, but it doesn't mean that they can't reveal their names. So I got another person, reliable source. I can assure you this is a reliable source. I have been reliably informed that 2 unsuccessful TCCP candidates have been hired by the premier as political assistants.
There you go.
Okay, so just a piece of information.
Indeed.
For what it's worth, you've heard it here first on Straight Talk. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, everyone. It's going to be a long weekend, and my colleague and I are going to get some rest along with you on Monday, but we promise we'll be right here with you on Tuesday.
Absolutely. Ellio, again, great week, great discussions, and to the listening audience, there'll be a lot more of that after we've taken a much-needed rest and enjoyed the long weekend with you. But be sure to tune in for more Straight Talk. We'll be back on the air at 4:30 to 6:30 next week, Tuesday, reminding you that tune in Monday through Friday on a normal week, but next week, Tuesday through Friday, right here for more Straight Talk, exclusively brought to you by Bobo 103.1 FM. Have a great weekend, K-Man.
The home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This is Bobo 103.1. The following commercial messages are brought to you exclusively by Stingray Media.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals.